Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, let's talk about that first drink of the day. You ever stop and wonder what's actually in your cup? Well, today we're going to cut through all the marketing noise, look at the data, and really decode the drinks we all reach for to get our day started.
So, let's dive right into one of the biggest morning mysteries, right? I'm talking about those drinks we think are the absolute peak of healthy living. Your smoothie, for instance. But is it really as good for you as you've been led to believe?
And then, of course, there's coffee, the daily ritual for literally millions of us. But the advice on it gives you whiplash, doesn't it? One day it's a superfood. The next it's terrible for your stomach. It feels like the story changes every other week.
And this whole thing gets even more confusing when we start talking about our kids. I mean, the stakes feel so much higher, right? As a parent, you're just bombarded with conflicting advice, trying to figure out the best, healthiest choice for them.
Okay, so let's start with what are supposed to be the good guys of the breakfast table. Yeah, I'm talking about smoothies and juices. And hey, let's be fair, the experts totally agree that a good smoothie can be an amazing choice. You know, registered dietitians quoted in places like Women's Health will tell you it can keep you full, it can get you satiated, and really kick your day off on the right foot.
But, and this is a big but, not all smoothies are created equal. That's the crucial point. Some of these recipes are basically just milkshakes pretending to be healthy, total sugar bombs in disguise without the nutrients you actually want.
I mean, just look at this chart. The variation is kind of wild. You've got a spiced blueberry smoothie with a solid 22 grams of protein. Awesome. But then you look at the PB and jelly one and whoa, 42 grams of sugar. And get this, even the super healthy sounding coconut kale smoothie has more sugar and half the protein of the blueberry one. Crazy, right?
And it's pretty much the same story when it comes to juice. You know, one gut health expert warns that a lot of juices are packed with more sugar than some sodas. Yeah, you heard that right. And all that sugar can really mess with your gut's microbiome and, lead to that awful energy crash a few hours later.
All right, let's switch gears and talk about the drink with maybe the most controversial reputation of all. Yep, coffee.
I mean, the advice is just all over the place. On one hand, you hear that drinking it on an empty stomach is terrible, that it ramps up stomach acid and causes all sorts of irritation. But then, on the other hand, a huge study in the Journal of Nutrition finds that drinking a cup or two a day is linked to a 14% lower risk of dying from, well, anything. It's totally contradictory.
So what gives? Is it a magic health potion or a gut wrecker? How can both of these things be true at the same time? Well, it turns out the answer isn't really about the coffee itself, it's about how we drink it.
Yeah, that same study from Tufts University that found all those amazing benefits. Well, it also found a huge catch.
And here it is. Those incredible, life-extending benefits, they're really linked to drinking your coffee black. The second you start piling in the sugar or the saturated fat from cream and whole milk, those benefits start to disappear. So you see, coffee itself isn't the hero or the villain. It's what you add to it that completely changes the equation.
Okay, so we've talked about the gray areas with coffee and smoothies. Now we're going to pivot to a category of drinks where the science is a lot less nuanced and, frankly, a lot more alarming.
We're talking about energy drinks, and the amount of caffeine in these things is, well, it's all over the place. You could grab one can that has about 50 milligrams, less than a cup of coffee. But the next one on the shelf could have over 500 milligrams. To put that in perspective, that's like chugging 5 cups of coffee in one go.
And we're not just talking about getting the jitters here. This is serious stuff. A big scientific review published on the National Institutes of Health website links excessive consumption to some truly scary health problems. We're talking documented cases of stroke, seizures, and, get this, 9 instances of cardiac arrest directly tied to drinking these things.
Okay, I know. After all that conflicting and honestly pretty scary info, it's easy to feel totally lost. But don't worry, there's actually a really simple framework, a kind of code, that we can use to make sense of all of this.
The key is to change the question we're asking. Instead of asking, is this drink good or bad, we need to be asking what's in this drink. Because when you do that, the answer almost always comes down to just 3 key components.
It's this simple: sugar content, protein power, and healthy fats. That's it. That's the code. If you can just look at those 3 things in whatever you're about to drink, you'll have everything you need to make a much smarter choice.
And let me show you how powerful this is in the real world. There was this great discussion I saw on Reddit among a bunch of science-minded parents, and it perfectly illustrates how you can use this code to answer a super common and confusing question.
So, The question was, what's the best milk for a toddler? Well, using our code, we know that for a kid between 1 and 2, protein and healthy fats are absolutely critical for their brain development. That's why pediatricians usually recommend whole cow's milk. It's packed with both. But see, it's not just about cow's milk. Soy and pea milk are also great non-dairy options because they also have high levels of protein and fat. Almond milk, on the other hand, it's mostly water. It just doesn't have those key nutrients, which makes it a really poor choice for a growing toddler.
You see how that works? It's brilliant. The whole debate isn't cow versus plant. That's just marketing. It's about using the code, protein and fat, to figure out which drink meets a specific nutritional need. It's about looking past the fancy packaging and reading the actual label.
So at the end of the day, this isn't about finding one single perfect drink. There's no magic bullet. It's about giving you a new way to think, a tool you can use to look at any drink on the shelf and actually understand what you're putting in your body.
Now you have the code. Just by focusing on those 3 things, sugar, protein, and fat, you can cut through all the noise, all the hype, and make a genuinely better choice for yourself and your family. So the question is, what's going to be in your cup tomorrow morning?